Today I'm going to be showing you guys my eye rendering formula, and honestly it takes only about an hour and I think anyone can do it. I was actually really inspired by these Chinese anime eyes I saw on Pinterest, and I wanted to come up with a formula so that I can draw these on my own and customize them to how I like it. But anyways, the first step in drawing this is to start by drawing this sort of seed shape, or you can think of it as like an almond. Really any reference from Pinterest will work as long as you like the shape. And of course you can always use the liquify tool if you just don't like how it looks later. As far as brushes go, you can use this brush, which is called the SU Cream Pencil Brush, if you have Clip Studio Paint. If you don't have Clip Studio Paint, you can just use a soft textured brush instead. Something that I like to think about when drawing eyes is to make sure that I have varying thickness and spacing between the eyelashes. Here I'm going for about 6 or 7 eyelashes, but it doesn't really matter, you can change this number however you want to. A similar idea goes for the bottom eyelashes. Typically I like to do around 3 to 4, but again you can just always choose whatever number you want. And then for the last part, I'm just going to draw in the eyelid and then make some minor adjustments using the liquify tool. At the end of the day, you can always play around with this and do what you think looks best. Alright, so the next part of coloring this is going to be coloring in the white part of the eye, which is called the sclera. It's not pure white and it's actually a little pink, so I would move the color picker over just a little bit. For the base color, I'm choosing this medium saturated red color, just so that I can get some room for some lighter and darker colors that I'm going to be using next. For a darker color, I'm going to go down and to the right, kind of like this. And for a lighter color, I'm going to go up and to the left, kind of like this. I also like to change the hue, which you can do by moving the color wheel counterclockwise. You don't have to move it that much, and you can also play around a little bit with the colors that you like, but I only move it just a little bit. The goal for right now is just to make a color gradient. When color picking, I like to make sure that the gradient goes into this hook shape. This is why it's important to use a soft brush, because the colors that it'll make will make this gradient for you. I also found that this helps avoid muddy colors, and you can also do this by checking the values. For right now, the values are going to stay kind of in this green zone. One way that you can check your values is by right-clicking on a layer and then follow these directions. At this stage, I would focus on larger shapes rather than really small details, because it's really easy to get hung up on really small, tiny things rather than the entire picture. And if you ever feel like your colors are muddy, that's perfectly fine because we can always correct the colors at a later stage. For the pupil, I like to use this gray color that's like right in the middle of the color picker. I also like to add a gradient to it, and you can also change the shape if you don't want to make it an oval. I've seen some that are more shaped like diamonds and they look really cool too. Make sure you also don't forget to render the top part of this eye, and be sure to add some different shapes and textures to it. So far the eye looks pretty good, and now we're just going to add some shadows and some other parts to the eyelashes. So here I'm just going to put in a normal layer and then add this really light pink color. At this stage, I'm just making the gradient a bit stronger, and I'm doing this by making the bottom part of the eye a bit lighter, and then the top part of the eye I'll make a bit darker later. Something that's also really important is to make sure that when you're rendering, try to zoom out as much as you can, because the main idea is to get the eye to look really good from afar. I know my head is blocking the layers here, but here I actually turned the lineart layer into a linear burn layer. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but it makes the eyelashes look a bit more deep and saturated. This step is really important, and it's going to make the eye look more 3D, but basically we're going to set a multiply layer over the whole thing and then just shade it in with a kind of grayish color like this. If you feel it's too dark, you can always change the opacity of the layer. For this next part, I'm going to color in the eyelashes using a soft airbrush and using this color right here. You can also color pick the skin color right here, but I decided to use a more saturated color instead. After that's done, I like to add in some highlights using a really bright color, and you can still use a normal layer here as well. Make sure you clip this layer to the line art layer so that it doesn't go outside of the eyelashes. Eyelashes are pretty much done right now, but something that I like to do is put an add glow layer or a soft light layer and then add glitter on it by using the droplet brush. Now it's time for the highlights, which really make the eyes stand out. The way I do this is by looking above the layers and then looking at the layer property and then clicking on this circle right here. The edge color determines the color of the outline, and the color picker determines whatever color you want on the inside. This is really handy for things like highlights, or sometimes I even like to use it for things like jewelry. Since the eye is really round, I like to create some contrast by making these highlights a bit sharper and more diamond shaped. At this point, I'm going back to fix some of the things with the pupil and a little bit of the iris here. To make the bottom of the eye stand out a bit more, I'm going to add an overlay layer on top of the iris and then add in a green color at the bottom. I know it shows up as yellow here, but the reason I'm using an overlay layer is because I want this color to adapt to the other colors that are around it. This is a great opportunity to experiment with different colors, but something that I like to do to increase contrast is just use complementary colors. For example, here I have a yellow color and a pink color, which is pretty close to a purple. But once that's done, what I like to do to give the iris an extra shine is to add another overlay layer on top and then use the soft airbrush and then use a medium saturated color. This is going to be the last step for the iris, which is going to be drawing in these reflections here. The way I do this is by drawing in these shapes using a cool gray color and then erasing some parts just to make sure that there's some spacing in between. And then once you're happy with how it looks, you can change the layer mode to screen. Some additional adjustments that you can make to these shapes is by blurring the edges or using the liquify tool and transforming them a little bit. The purpose of these shapes is to make the eye look like glass, and I think it really gives it a nice shiny look as well. Here I'm just finishing these reflection shapes by erasing some of these parts on the edges and then also using the blend tool to make it a little bit blurry. Now that the eye is done, I like to add in makeup and some other things around the skin. I'm not super familiar with all the makeup terminology, but I like to add in stuff like blush or eyeshadow. I also like to add this stuff underneath the eye. I'm not really sure what this is called either, but I think this is the eye bags. To give the eyes a little bit of depth, I like to pick the skin color and then just use a multiply layer to shade underneath the eye, kind of like this. I'm going to speed up the rest of this part because it's mostly just me messing around with different colors and also mixing up some remaining things on the eye. But there's going to be one final step, and that's just going to be to blur the outline of the iris. Here I just removed some of the outline and then used a blur tool to make it a little bit blurry on the edges. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, and if you enjoy educational drawing content like this, be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.